Chris Pratt detonates the internet after being casted as Mario in the Super Mario Bros. Movie, as trailers for both Licorice Pizza and Season 4 of Cobra Kai are released, and both Venom, Let There Be Carnage, and The Many Saints of Newark finally hit theaters. I'm Joe Acierno.
And I'm Darius Delsoin. This is Cinema Unchained.
All right, folks, we're at episode 27 of Cinema Unchained, The Many Saints of Carnage. Now, before we get into our thoughts on the news regarding the Super Mario Bros. Movie casting, can't believe I'm saying that, don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications whether you're on Spotify, iHeartRadio, Podchaser, and more. And follow our social media pages that are listed in the description. Before we get into our review of Venom, Let There Be Carnage, according to Yahoo News, casting for the upcoming Super Mario Bros. Movie, yes, you heard that correctly, they are trying this again. Casting for the upcoming Super Mario Bros. Movie has indeed been announced. And now, it's interesting. When I first read this, my thought was, wait, they're making another Super Mario Bros. Movie? It just feels so, like, is it just me? Like, I kind of forgot that this is happening.
No, it's been happening for a while. I think they announced it like 2-3 years ago that they were in development of a new Super Mario animated movie.
Gotcha. Okay. Yeah, never mind. I do remember, like, rumblings of that a while ago. But is it just me? Like, when I read about, like, who is being casted and what, it's weird. Like, by and large, like, it made me think, like, okay, I can see it. Like, with each person. Mm-hmm. Mostly. I'm like, okay, I can see it, but it made me wonder, like, why are they doing this movie? Why? Like, this is like a pretty A-list celebrity, like A-grade talented set of people, and they're doing the Super Mario Bros. Movie. Why? What's going on here? Like, I read these and, like, I'm gonna be honest, I laughed my ass off. Like, I couldn't believe what I was reading. It was just so weird. So many conflicting emotions all in one just from reading this one article.
Yeah, for me, when I read this, I was like, are you serious? This is the most outlandish casting I've seen. But then the more I thought about it, I was like, you know what? I'm interested. I'm very intrigued now just because of the casting alone. I mean, we have Chris Pratt as Mario, which is like, all right, this is...
Memes as far as the internet can see.
We have that. We have Charlie Day as Luigi, which is I was not expecting at all. And
neither was I.
And I'm excited for that. We have Seth Rogen as Donkey Kong, which is freaking awesome, in my opinion. Then we have Keegan-Michael Key as Toad, Anya Taylor-Joy.
I don't know where they're going with that one.
It's the most outlandish like thing you can see, and then Keegan-Michael Key as Toad, and like it's Anya Taylor-Joy as Peach. Who's Bowser again? Jack Black as Bowser, which is like, what?
Jack Black. Okay, I'm gonna be honest. That one, I'm like, okay. Out of all these, I like that one the most.
Like, it's the most outlandish casting, but at the same time, I can see it, I don't see it, and I'm curious to see the direction they take with this movie now. Because I like Illumination. I really do, and I think they're gonna do I think they're gonna do actually a pretty good job with this Mario Bros. Movie. For some reason, I think they are. And again, I think the casting alone kind of just shows that, oh, they're getting this A-list talent for a reason, hopefully. Even if it's a decent, bad
they
script.
They actually care.
So I'm actually excited. Just from casting alone, I'm excited.
I'm gonna be honest. As far as all this, I really don't know what to think as far as the movie as a whole. Like, on one end, like, yeah, it is Illumination. I forgot that they were in on this one, and they're usually pretty decent on average. But I don't know. And it's by and large, like, I like everybody, like, individually that was casted. Almost everybody that was individually casted, I do like. As much as I like Chris Pratt, I don't know how he's going to do as Mario. That feels very weird. It feels very random. Like, Charlie Day as Luigi, I'm like, okay, that makes sense. Jack Black as Bowser, okay. Like, I can see it. Chris Pratt as Mario, I don't know. I really don't know. And again, like, that's just like on a casting basis too. Like, as far as the movie, how the movie's going to be as a whole, I really don't know. If it's good, I will genuinely be surprised. I will really, really be surprised. If it's bad, then, it's not exactly news. It won't exactly be like, news to the world or anything like that.
Yeah.
So I don't know. I mean, and it's weird. Like, it feels weird that it feels weird and not weird that they're trying this again. Because, of course, like, you have the original Super Mario Bros. Movie from 1993, which, again, I never saw it. I'd seen bits and pieces here and there, but I never sat down and watched it from start to finish. And, like, based on the little bit that I've seen, like, I know it's not exactly a good movie. And my favorite is when people say, like, oh, like, you have to sit down and watch the movie from start to finish in order to really know. And I'm like, not with this one.
No.
You just know. I mean, John Leguizamo, he didn't even grow a mustache to play Luigi. I mean, like, come on. Like, Bob Hoskins, again, shitty movie aside, props to Bob Hoskins. I think he cared a little bit. He at least cared enough to grow a freaking mustache to play Mario. But I don't know. Have you ever seen the original movie from start to finish?
I've seen bits and pieces, but I was just like, because I saw bits and pieces, I did not want to see the rest of it.
Yeah, it's just like, again, like, seeing the little bit that you've seen, like, you get a feel for the rest of the movie. Like, it's not going up from there.
Yeah. Well, I mean, one of the things that makes me happy about this movie, is that it's animated. So it makes sense, I think, True. It's going to be an animated movie, so I'm pretty happy that that's the route, and really the route a lot of these sort of almost certain characters when it comes to video games and icons should be animated movies like Sonic and even though I still like the Sonic movie, I would have preferred an animated one. Even TMNT to a certain extent. Even Seth Rogen's producing that one, which has me excited for that one. And now with Mario being animated a CG movie, I'm actually excited for that because it's like they can't really mess up the looks, potentially. Hopefully. We'll see. We saw Sonic in that first design.
Yeah.
So.
And again, it's funny that that first Sonic design, that was rough. But even then, like, going back to what you're saying about, like, Mario being, like, an animated movie, the new one that's coming up, I do wonder how much like the original video games, or, like, at least, like, the Mario design that we know today, I wonder how similar the movie is going to look to that. Like, it's going to look like more like that? It's going to look more like Gru from Despicable Me? I honestly don't know.
Yeah, I guess design-wise and art style-wise, it's like us going to wait and see. If anything, I think Nintendo's still going to have a big hand in this movie as far as how they want their characters represented. I mean, let's face it. I know personally, as someone that follows the Super Smash Bros. And just how they announce certain characters, they don't want to see certain characters killed, decapitated, that sort of thing. So they kind of cheat their way around it. But in general, I think Nintendo, just has like, no, our characters look a certain way, feel a certain way. So I think they definitely have their hands on this project as much as they possibly can. So again, we'll have to wait and see. All I know is the casting alone has me excited.
Yeah. Yeah, like I said, I don't know if I could say it has me. It's really weird. I don't know if I could say it has me excited. It's captured my interest, but whether or not, again, like, my expectations are high or low, like, I feel like I have to know a bit more. And again, it just feels very surreal that we're having this conversation. So the new Mario Brothers movie hits theaters on December 21st, 2022, right in time for Oscar season, which, I think is kind of interesting how they planned that out. And again, to all you guys listening, what do you think about, like, the casting, or not even just the casting, just really the overall concept for a new Super Mario Bros. Movie? Leave your thoughts wherever it is that you can. All right, now, before we get into the trailer for Paul Thomas Anderson's next film, the sequel to 2018's Venom finally hit theaters after 1,000,001 delays due to COVID-19 and other bullshit reasons. Venom Let There Be Carnage shows Eddie Brock and Venom battling another alien symbiote that's attached to a Woody Harrelson-shaped serial killer instead of a beta businessman, and that's pretty much all that's different in the general concept of this film. And now I'm just going to start out and say, before the movie, we saw a lot of good previews. We saw the trailer for Dune. We saw the trailer for Spider-Man No Way Home. We saw the trailer for No Time to Die. And I'm going to be honest, all these put together were better than the movie that we saw.
Of course they were. What did you expect from a Venom sequel?
Yeah, and again... Yeah, exactly. I mean, like, honestly, overall, like, I still feel like this is an improvement over the last film, even though it's, and again, like obviously it's not saying too much, but still. And I think one of the things that definitely weighs this movie down is that at 97 minutes long, or 97 or so minutes long, this movie still managed to feel longer than it was, you know. And again, like, do you feel like the movie dragged it
longer? Man, this movie was too quick. The second those credits rolled, I was like,
really?
wait,
okay.
it? Nothing happened. I mean, that's just, again, I did not like Venom 1. I didn't. And as a comic fan as well, Venom was one of my favorite villains. Seeing how they portrayed him was kind of a big no for me from the first Venom. Venom 2, still don't like it. I think I did say in the theater I liked it more than the first, but more that I think about it, I don't think so. I don't think that's the case. I still don't like it. Again, I like certain aspects, like the comedy. That's the direction they're going in. But just, it's such a weird thing because I didn't like the movie. The main things I liked was Carnage's design, Venom's design, Woody Harrelson as Cletus to a certain extent, and Cletus as a character, I guess, to a certain extent. And that's relatively it for me. Like that, and that's the unfortunate part for me personally. So,
you know, staying on the topic of Cletus, I still think, even though he's definitely him and the other villains are still like underwritten in this film. Cletus Cassidy, I think as a villain is still better than the villain from the first film, because I thought he was terrible. He was absolutely terrible. Casting wise, acting wise, just writing wise and dialogue wise, he was terrible. He was a shit terrible villain. Whereas when it comes to at least Cletus Cassidy, like, okay, I still felt like he was kind of like underwritten, but at least you had Woody Harrelson.
Exactly.
Honestly, I thought he did a good job with what he did a good job with what he was given. He wasn't given much to work with, but it was still a good job. And still, again, as the main villain, it was definitely an improvement over the last film.
Yeah, like for me, definitely, like if I had to compare it to the first one, I think this one, villain wise, was definitely better, but still to a certain extent, it felt very mixed mash with different intentions that just didn't land and different motivations that I was just like, this doesn't make sense. And knowing myself and knowing the comics, I was like, okay, why did they say this when it's obviously not true, but okay. So it was a weird mixed bag not mixed bag. I just didn't like the movie. Again, the comedy hit to a certain extent.
Yeah. I mean,
you know, the designs, Carnage, everything. I like that. Even Carnage, I liked him, but not fully. I didn't love him. They downplayed him. They dialed him down tremendously, in my opinion. And that's where I think the PG-13 rating
I agree.
hinders, I guess, what a Venom film and even what Carnage can truly be if they just let loose with an R rating. So.
Yeah, I totally agree with you. I remember talking to a friend of mine who said that if, you know, Venom Let There Be Carnage is rated PG-13, then it's gonna be a flop, which I think his prediction turned out to be accurate. Again, like going back to like the comedy that you were saying in the film, and again, like the comedy really is because of Venom. Like there were a lot of times when he was actually very, very funny, but unfortunately too, there were a lot of times when I had a hard time understanding what he was saying because his voice felt very muffled at times.
Yeah, like I said, comedy was only to a certain extent for me. So, which is why it's hard. I think for people that like the first one, they're gonna like this one, straight up. But if they didn't like the first one,
fair.
They're really not gonna like the second one in this one.
Yeah, and again, it's not like I hated this movie. Like I walked out of this movie feeling like, as just like the movie itself. I felt it was still, like I said, I still think it's still better than the first one. But now, in terms of like Eddie and Venom's like relationship, like I still feel like they just fight like an old married couple, which they kind of did in the first one. So this in here kind of felt like more of the same. There's certain things that go in a different direction, which I don't want to say right now because of spoilers. But like, I don't know, it still felt like a lot of the same. What'd you think of their relationship overall? Like, do you feel like it felt like anything new? Is it still entertaining?
Just
What do you think?
same old. I don't think anything's really developed other than, like you said, no spoilers. But just even to that, it's like, oh, you think they're actually going to develop something, and then they kind of don't, or they kind of don't really flesh it out, which is also another disappointing aspect of the film. Because again, it's like the film feels like it's gonna develop something, like a certain moment of a character, maybe what they're thinking, and then all of a sudden they just take a backseat. And they're like, okay, you know what, we're gonna stop, we're gonna go a different direction. Again, and this is where it's like, even with Cletus Cassidy's character, I felt like his motivations were all over the place. And it's understandable considering the type of character he is, but then at the same time, I think it messed with the film's overall, I guess, a bit of the structure and some of the pacing, mainly because it was confusing at times, because it's like, okay, you go from almost a somewhat of a character study or somewhat of like trying to dive deep into Cletus. It seems like you're going a really interesting route with him, and then all of a sudden you just switch at 180 and it doesn't feel as authentic as it should, or it's just a random abrupt transition that just doesn't feel organic or satisfying. So, and that's why it's like I like Cletus to a certain extent is really that confusion of mixed messaging and, I guess, motivations for this character. And I felt that it was a bit over the place and nothing really was concrete with him. But at the same time, again, he's a serial killer, understandable. But again, I think narrative wise, it just didn't really work for me, at least.
Yeah, I definitely understand what you're saying there. And going, I guess, staying on the topic of Cletus, his love interest, like other villain in the film, right? Shriek. Yeah, I was saying, what do you think of her? Like, do you feel like she was necessary? Because honestly, like, looking at this, or just like, again, just remembering, I just felt like she was just like kind of over the top, and I just feel like she didn't really bring much to the table.
She wasn't believable, in my opinion. She was over the top, and this goes into where it's like, it looked like they had two motivations for him, but they couldn't decide, and they ended up going with the love interest, which didn't work for me. And it's like, if they just took her out, took the original motivation that I kind of saw what they were going with, I would have liked that a bit more. But again, this is like, you might as well have taken her out of the film. I didn't think she served really a big purpose.
Yeah. Yeah, I agree with you there. And again, I think the biggest determinant over whether or not someone is going to enjoy this film is that there's a sort of ridiculousness that you need to embrace in order to really enjoy this movie. And I think, without giving away too much, you can look, Darius, you and I can look back at certain scenes and realize that's the case. And I'm going to be honest, in terms of embracing that, I wasn't always able to do that, So I guess, like, maybe that's why, like, I had a hard time. I don't know if it's that, like, I had a hard time enjoying this movie while I was watching it, because, like, I guess I was entertained, but just walking out of it, I'm like,
Yeah,
Because, like, there were so many times throughout this where I was like, what am I watching? Like, what am I watching? What did I do in my life that brought me here to this moment? Like, that's how I felt throughout so many points in the film.
Yeah, like, for me, I was entertained, but it was only when they were doing the jokes and some of the action sequences. That was it. But then even some of the action sequences, I just felt so numbed that I was just like, I don't care. Like I said, if you like the first Venom, you're probably gonna like this one. If you didn't like the first one, you're definitely not gonna like this one. If you're a fan of Carnage, you may be a bit disappointed. Like how I was to a certain extent. And that extent is really, and I'm gonna be frank, I think Sony making it PG-13 is a hindrance to a character like Venom's true potential in live action.
Yeah. I agree with you there, too. Because, again, I feel like I don't have a problem with them going for the comedy. In fact, without the comedy in these films has been, like, the main reason to enjoy any bit of them. But I feel like if they could balance that with, like, an actual horror element, then I think you could really have something that stands out. And again, I feel like they'd only be able to effectively pull off that real horror element with something like Venom if it was rated R, if they would, actually be able to take that step. But yeah, I mean, and honestly too, another thing that's like, I guess, like kind of separate from the movie, that's like the best part of the movie is the post-credit scene. Now, again, like honestly, like we shouldn't give anything away here, but honestly, the post-credit scene is the biggest reason to watch this movie, unless you want to wait a few more days for it to get miraculously leaked online. But like honestly, like without giving too much away, it definitely
opens the doors,
gives you something to look forward to. Yeah, it opens a lot of doors. And again, I think it was my brother that said it best. Like, this movie served as something to get me pumped for what's to come.
Yeah, and this is where I have to say that's, to me, it's unfortunate that they're doing this type of stuff for other things down the road, because it's like that you should just try to make a good movie instead of focusing on future whatever plans you have, Like Venom overall, just it feels like they're trying to build a Spider-Man universe without Spider-Man and have Venom be that character. And that's why it just doesn't work with me, because Venom is not Spider-Man in so many ways.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. So yeah, like again, like overall, like I just felt like this movie is, it wasn't terrible. Like I said, it was it's mediocre and like forgettable. There's some good performances. Honestly, like I said, Woody Harrelson. I still feel like Tom Hardy is giving it his all too. Yeah, even though I feel like he doesn't have so much to work with himself. But yeah, it's what it is. Like as far as like this movie being worth however many delays it got, it definitely wasn't worth the wait. It really wasn't. It really wasn't worth like everything being so
I called it.
Yep, you did. No, you definitely did. We talked about the trailer, and I'm like, oh, maybe this won't be so bad. And there's another situation where the trailer is better than the movie. So now again, for all you guys that are still watching or listening, excuse me, what did you think of Venom: Let There Be Carnage? Did the first film deserve a sequel? Again, was it worth all the delays that it got? Leave your thoughts in the comment section. And now, before we get into the trailer for Licorice Pizza, don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications whether you're on Google Podcasts, Listen Notes, the Podcast Index, Stitcher, and more. And follow our social media pages in the description. Before we talk about the new trailer and date announcement for Season 4 of Cobra Kai, the trailer for Licorice Pizza, the next film from acclaimed filmmaker Paul Thomas Anderson, was released this past week. And all I have to say is, before we really get into like what we thought of this, what the fuck is this title?
I don't know, man. When you told...
so, like, I remember...
I don't know, man. When you told me it was Licorice Pizza, I'm like, what the hell is Licorice Pizza? What? What is this title?
Yeah, like it's just like two words. It's just like two words that you never would expect to come together to make a phrase. I'm like, all right. And here's the thing. It's not even the craziest part. The title of this movie was originally called Soggy Bottom.
All right then.
Yeah. Oh yeah. Yeah. But again, like witnessing the title aside, I'm super pumped for this movie. And just to give like a little bit of context, the film follows an aspiring adolescent actor as he falls in love with an aspiring teenage actress while coming of age in 1970s San Fernando Valley. And now, one of the things that I do have to say is that the song choice for this trailer, Life on Mars by David Bowie, I think did a great job in getting me excited for the film. I feel like it fits the film's setting and energy based on what we've seen from it so far. And Darius, I'm just out of curiosity, how familiar are you with the films of Paul Thomas Anderson?
Somewhat, but I'm definitely familiar with him and like him as a director. If you probably named a movie from it, I'd probably be like, yeah, I've heard of it or I've seen it, that sort of thing. Off the top of my head, is he a director that I'm just like, that's always on my mind or whatever? No, but like, mention a few movies of his, probably I'll be like, yeah, I've seen it, I liked it, that sort of thing. But this movie, just the trailer alone, didn't do anything for me. That's just like, it's just not. It doesn't. Really? Again, it's not the type of film I would want to see per se. It just, like I said, it didn't really do anything other than like, okay, what am I watching? I was like, I understood, what they're doing and everything, but I'm not excited. I'm not pumped. I don't think I'll even see it. So
Wow. Okay. It's I'm in the total opposite boat as you because one of the things that I do love about Paul Thomas Anderson, again, this is the guy who directed There Will Be Blood, Phantom Thread, Inherent Vice, and my favorite film of his, Boogie Nights. One of the things that I love is that he has a way of making like the eccentricities in human nature feel authentic and lifelike. Like he always brings those quirks to the forefront without making it feel overly quirky. You know what I mean? Like it still feels like something that you can encounter, like, in regular life. And I have an odd feeling that, excuse me, Jesus. I have an odd feeling that Licorice Pizza is going to fit right into that scheme of his. And I have an odd feeling it's going to feel the most like Boogie Nights because they both deal with the craziness of the entertainment industry. And again, which makes me really, really excited. I loved that. I love the feelings that this trailer gave me. I love the retro vibes. And I also love coming of age stories too. I'm always such a sucker for those. So I'm just really pumped. I'm really, really pumped for this.
Yeah,
one.
like I like the retro vibes like that. I really liked myself, but again, I just overall I don't know. It just didn't do it for me. I was just like, you know what? I'll wait to see this movie. It's not something I'd want to go to a theater to see day one or anything like that. Like going forward for me is kind of like, okay, what movie has piqued my interest to the point where I'm really interested, if not intrigued, or if not excited, to see it in the theaters day 0, day 1, if not opening weekend. That's kind of just because there's a lot of movies out there, and sometimes I may want to see something at home instead of going to a theater per se. So it's like, is this a movie I would see in a theater? No. Is this something I would see at home? Yes. So yeah, that's kind of where my mind is just at the current moment with a lot of these movies, because it's just like, is it really worth it to go to the theater? Is it really not worth it? It's a mixture of just like, why should I see this? Does it have the interest, like my interest going forward, or is it something that's like, maybe I'll see it on like a Tuesday day $6 ticket sort of movie too, in case I'm bored or whatever.
Mm-hmm. Yeah. I know it's funny because like now that, because like here's the thing, since we've been doing the show, like we've had to like see things somewhat opening weekend so we could review things and still have it be somewhat current and have it still be somewhat relevant. But even outside of that, like this is something that, at least at this point in time, I would 1000% see opening weekend regardless of whether or not we do the show. Like I seriously cannot wait to see this. So we have that. The film is set to be released in theaters only. Actually, it's funny that you mentioned like, oh, you'd watch it online. It's only set to be released in theaters on November 26th. And for all you guys still with us right now, what'd you think of the new trailer for Paul Thomas Anderson's next film? Are you a fan of Paul Thomas Anderson's films? Leave your thoughts wherever it is that you can. And now, before we cap off the show with our review of The Many Saints of Newark, the trailer and date announcement for Season 4 of Cobra Kai debuted this past week. It's set to premiere on Netflix on December 31st. And that's something that I wanted to really talk about too. Even though like this season's set to debut on December 31st, right, of 2021. Season 3 debuted on New Year's Day of 2021. So that's technically 2 seasons in 1 year, which, considering the amount of effort that you can tell goes into these shows, that's insane. Like that's a really impressive feat. And based on what we've seen so far, again with the trailer that was released, I have an odd feeling that Cobra Kai season 4 is going to live up to everything that's happened before. Like it does have big shoes to fill because every season has just gotten better and better, and I have an odd feeling that this one won't be an exception.
I'm excited. Like I said, when I announced the release date, I was a bit like, oh man, I have to wait till the end of December, but then I was like, you know what? I'll take it. At least it's this year. So,
yep. Which again, it feels so weird. Like when was the last time you saw 2 seasons of a show premiere in the same year?
Yeah, that
right? Like
not often. I think some shows, especially since the pandemic, are doing that a bit more often. Because I know one of the shows I'm watching is ending soon, or it ended earlier this year, and the new season's coming out this year. So it's kind of like, okay, I'm kind of, but at the same time, they're shortening the episodes of each season, and that's why they're able to put out, 2 seasons in 1 year. So I mean, like I said, Cobra Kai is a show that I think I love so much. I'm excited for season 4. I'm excited to see what they do going forward, because it's like they bring more characters back from the original, series, the original movie. So it's just like more tension, more drama, more action. I'm pumped.
Yeah, exactly. Like the stakes with each passing season, the stakes always get higher. The action keeps getting crazier without feeling over the top too. Like there's that line between like, things being insane and things like feeling like too much, like too ridiculous. And Cobra Kai is right in that sweet spot. And another thing that I love too is that this show has so many characters and they all feel so fully formed. They're all so interesting. And I really, really care about all of them. Like they all keep getting deeper. Like with so many characters in there, none of them feel like weaklings. None of them feel like, they're just like afterthoughts. Like they all feel like they have their place. They all feel like they all bring something to the table. And it's funny too, like this show like has like a self-aware dig at itself, saying how ridiculous it is that everything depends on a karate tournament, which I thought was hilarious. Because again, the background context for the season is that the Miyagi-Do and Eagle Fan karate dojos joined together in order to take on Cobra Kai, which has, I guess, been re-corrupted by John Kreese. So, well, and just the fact that, Danny LaRusso's wife, she's like, here I was, like, I never thought I'd be saying that, the safety of my family depends on a karate tournament, but here we are, living in the Twilight Zone. So, which I thought was just like really,
yeah, I'm excited for this. Can't wait December. Let's go. I'm excited. I'll have my popcorn ready.
Yeah. Honestly, like I'm gonna be binge watching, like depending on what I'm doing with family, New Year's Eve or New Year's Day. I'm gonna be binge watching this show. I really am. I'm gonna be staying up way past midnight, like after we get home, just to watch this. This is gonna be insane.
Binge watching this is literally going to be my New Year's Eve.
So, yeah. Yeah, it's my New Year's celebration. Oh, it's 2022. Yep. Oh, okay, cool. All right, back to this. Yeah. So again, the season debuts on Netflix on December 31st. And again, your thoughts, everybody. I don't understand how you can't be excited for this show, but maybe that's just me. Maybe I'm just a tiny bit biased. So, okay. Now, to cap off the show, the prequel to the iconic TV series The Sopranos was finally released. Again, there's another thing that was kind of put all over the place release-wise because of COVID, and it's set against the backdrop of the Newark riots during the 1960s and how mobster Dickie Moltisanti influences a young Tony Soprano as he comes of age. And I'm not going to lie, like I'm kind of a mixed bag on this movie overall. I feel like there were certain things that worked, but I feel like there's a certain weight to the show to this film that I was expecting, because of the fact that it's, quote, a Sopranos story. But again, like the fact that it's a follow-up to, or it's weird, it's both a prequel and a follow-up to The Sopranos, like that's kind of an impossible act to follow, because I just finished season 4 of The Sopranos, and so far, it's a perfect show. Like, changed my mind. Like, it's an amazing, amazing show. Nothing that anyone could ever put out would be able to compete with The Sopranos, but at the same time, given the pedigree of this film, the fact that it has so much to do with The Sopranos, the fact that so many writers and producers and directors came from The Sopranos to make this film, I was expecting the Many Saints of Newark to at least be able to compete with The Sopranos, and I'm going to be honest, It doesn't.
Well, I mean, for me, it is. This is going to be interesting for you to hear. So, when I saw the trailer, I wasn't too excited. I was like, I'll see it. I'm not that much. I haven't seen The Sopranos, so I don't know too much about it. To me, when I saw the trailers, it really looked and felt as if it was going to be some sort of origin story for, I guess, the main character in the series. Correct me if I'm wrong. Again, like I said, I never watched The Sopranos, so I wasn't that interested or intrigued by this movie. But after watching it, I really liked it. I actually really liked it. And I did not expect to like it as much as I did. Mainly because of just the raw and grittiness of just how it felt, with the family, with the the stuff going on in their neighborhood. To me, it just felt so raw and that I enjoyed it a lot, and it felt so it had a certain rawness that I really liked. That anything happened, I'm actually somewhat on the edge of my seat a good chunk of the movie because it's like I don't know where anything is going. It really took me for a loop in certain ways. And I really liked it, and I liked how you got to see almost a bit of the psyche of, I guess, the uncle of this. I'm already forgetting names, but like I kind of saw that. Oh, he didn't want to be this type of man, but he's slowly becoming it. And again, I liked some of the parallels that are drawing between. I liked the family drama to a certain extent, and you just see how, I guess, how some of the characters broke down in their own ways. And again, I did not expect to like it as much as I did. And you know me, Joe. So
That's really interesting. Yeah, I was gonna say that's really interesting that you say that. And it's funny, going back to what you're saying about, like, quote, rawness to the film, I felt it more with the original show. So if you think this movie was raw, watch the original show.
Like I said, I haven't seen The Sopranos, so
and honestly, oh, dude, it's, oh my god, I can't sing enough praises for that show. Yeah. I wish I only watched it sooner. But it's funny too. Like, I'm glad that you haven't seen the show yet, and I've at least seen most of the show, because like I'm glad that we were able to have both sort of perspectives for reviewing this type of movie. Because we could at least see, like, okay, as of something that's outside of The Sopranos, or excuse me, as someone who hasn't watched The Sopranos, would that someone be able to enjoy this movie? And I guess in your case they have, because like honestly, I was watching this too, and after I'm done, I'm like, you know what? I have an odd feeling that you're not going to be able to enjoy this movie if you didn't watch The Sopranos. But I guess, you proved me wrong there. But like one of the complaints that I have with this movie is that I do agree with that. Times felt a bit unfocused. Like, even though it definitely, even though it shifted more to Dickie Moltisanti's story instead of Tony Soprano's, like it seemed to advertise, it didn't really feel sure as far as like which direction it wanted to go in, even though it definitely leans more towards Dickie. It definitely drifted more into Tony's story at certain points where it felt unfocused, but still. And again, like I said, it felt very strange that Tony in a lot of ways got brushed off to the side, because again, this is definitely
exactly, and this is where I was actually a bit mixed too when I was watching. So I was like, okay, the marketing and the advertising, the trailers made it suggest that it's his story, but it's really his Uncle Dickie's. And I was just like, you know what? But even then, I really liked how things unfolded for Dickie's, Uncle Dickie. So because I was like, man, this is just so interesting to see how in the beginning he was this guy, and at the end he's just like who he didn't want to be. And I found that really interesting, and I really liked it. And even certain revelations, seeing, I guess, the mentality and perspective of the different class systems of, I guess, the the Sopranos, in their time, and even the wealthiest to a certain extent, to people that are trying to come up and be wealthy, that sort of thing. Really almost a black and white thing, kind of literally, unfortunately. But again, I found that very interesting and drew me in. And even certain moments with facial expressions and people seeing each other in a certain way, I'm like, is there something there? And then I get confirmation. It's like, okay, oh man, it's about to get heated. So I was like, I really like this movie. I really did.
Yeah, good. Like I said, I'm a mixed bag overall. Like, there are things that worked and there are things that didn't. Like, going back to what you're saying about Dickie Moltisanti, and again, like how this definitely seems to be more of his story. One of the things that I felt was really interesting about Dickie is that, like, he's volatile, but he's more measured too. You know what I mean? There's like a measured volatility to him. And the explosive moments really snuck up on me. Whereas if you watch the Sopranos TV show, like, so many people, like so many of the characters, like, they're ready to explode. You know what I mean? Whereas with Dickie, like I said, it really snuck up on me. So, like, having that contrast to like all the other Sopranos characters that I've known and really come to enjoy, like, that was really cool having that. Performance-wise, like honestly, I can't say there was really a weak note. I think performances were pretty strong across the board. Alessandro Nivola as Dickie Moltisanti, I thought he was solid. Michael Gandolfini as a young Tony Soprano, obviously the younger version of the role his late great father James made famous. I felt like he wasn't given much to do, but in the moments, in the scenes that he did have, I thought he was solid. I thought he did a really good job. And one of the things that I really loved, again, this is as someone who loves the original show, there were a lot of ways that certain performers in this film mirrored mannerisms from characters from the show. Like you have Corey Stoll as Junior Soprano, you have Vera Farmiga as Livia Soprano. There were just like a lot of times where I felt like in the way they said certain things, in the way they moved and looked at other people, like it reminded me of their characters in the show. So it really shows that they gave a lot of attention to the roles that they were trying to, I guess, recreate in a way too. So I really did enjoy that. But at the same time too, they didn't necessarily feel like just impressions either. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Overall, for me, really liked it. Really freaking liked it.
And then yeah. I did like how this movie definitely had like gritty scenes, but like I said, there's a certain edginess and weight that I was expecting that I didn't get, again, because of the Sopranos. I'm comparing this show to what I'm used to with the Sopranos too, so maybe that's not entirely fair. One thing I really do have to say though is that as far as like the visuals, I loved the visuals in this movie. The cinematography is gorgeous. Oh man, like there's a lot of like memorable imagery in this movie. I love the production design and stuff too. So like as far as like recreating like that scene between like, again, from like a visual standpoint to all like the historical context that they put in the story, like that I thought they did really, really well. I like that a lot.
Absolutely gorgeous. And to me, weighty and impactful even in just the frames they've made and everything, almost every second of the way. And it's like, to me, almost a good chunk of the film almost had meaning and actually felt like things were going forward to a certain extent, mainly because of the disfocus, I guess, between Tony Soprano and Uncle Dickie, and how those two kind of just felt a bit, not necessarily isolated, but just jumbled a bit and unfocused, because it's like they want to develop one side, especially with Tony Soprano, but then they don't continue going forward. Because I thought, my initial thought, especially in the beginning, was like, oh, we're going to get that, basically what we saw. And then the second half was going to be, oh, it's going to be more Tony, or I guess a different character's focus and perspective. But it wasn't what I expected. Which to an extent, I guess I liked it, but at the same time, again, from just a bit of a structure and narrative, at least a bit of a pacing wise for me, it definitely fell off in certain ways. So.
Yeah, and again, staying on the topic of the narrative too, again, the film definitely showed Dickie's relationship with Tony, right? And it definitely shows him having an influence on him to an extent. But it's not like it didn't really show the moment where Tony goes from a rebellious kid to organized crime soldier. Like, there wasn't a moment in this film where I'm like, okay, it's obvious that, like, they care about each other. He cares about his Uncle Dickie, but I didn't see a moment there where I was like, okay, this is the moment where Tony decides to go into the mob. You know what I mean?
But yeah.
But, and again, that's a moment that I was expecting too. And again, there were certain references to the show that I did enjoy, and there are certain like emotional tie-ins that snuck up on me at the end that I did enjoy, which I thought I'm like, okay, this is well done. But again, like that, I guess, quintessential moment for like when Tony decides to go into, quote, the life, and to take that oath, like that didn't really click, which is, again, I thought that's what I was going to get. And I feel like we should have gotten with how they were advertising this. But yeah, glad you enjoyed it. Now, just out of curiosity, after watching this movie, you have HBO Max. The Sopranos is on HBO Max.
I do but not at this current moment because I just have other shows I'm watching.
Yeah. I feel like there have been so many times where people say like, oh, you got to watch this, and be like, I got other stuff to do too. I got other stuff to watch as well.
Like,
it's on the to-do list.
Like I have so many shows on my list that Sopranos. Like, am I interested in seeing the Sopranos now? Yes. Is it high on my list? No. It's very low at the bottom because I just have other shows that pique my interest a bit more. That's just simply how it is. So.
Which is fair. And again, for all you guys that are still with us, what did you think of the Many Saints of Newark? Does the Sopranos prequel actually justify its existence? Comment wherever it is that you can. And just like that, that's it for today. Don't forget to like, follow, share, subscribe, and hit the bell to get all notifications, whether you're on Apple Podcasts, Pandora, YouTube, and so much more. And follow our social media pages in the description. And we'll see you next time.